just, I mean, y'all are going up against the #1 team, and you had some really good minutes. What does that do for you, confidence-wise?
Yeah, for sure. Even the games before that, getting those little bit of minutes helped build my confidence. But yeah, every game I get in, there's more confidence every time.
And for you, yeah, just coming off of that game, maybe what were the takeaways? I mean, outside of that first 5 minutes, you guys played really well with them. What are your takeaways from that game?
Honestly, just building off of it. I think we played really well. So really just building off of it and just taking what we did against them to do it against TCU even better though.
Yeah. How have you seen Kayla get better since she got here and really started getting going with this team?
Yeah, her confidence is definitely up there. At first, she wasn't really talking, but now she's really getting the hang of it. And yeah, that confidence is definitely up, and I can see it just keep building every single game. So definitely proud of her.
And then, Kayla, what was the adjustment period like? Like from the moment you got here to kind of where you're at now, like how hard was that to overcome?
I wouldn't say it was just like hard, but I just had people in my ear telling me, like coaches, like you're gonna meet, like we need you, and like my team is saying that like we need you, like you could play, like you're not like a bad player or anything like that. We're gonna need you like anytime your name is called on the court. So I was just being told that at some point you're gonna learn like not to be a freshman anymore in a sense, especially when conference play comes. So let's say that like it just had people telling me that like you need to just keep going and get better every day.
And now with Madison out, are you ready for more minutes, more responsibility? Like, are you ready for that challenge?
Yes, for sure.
Why?
Because you just need to stay ready. Like it's not, you can't just, I don't know, you just need to stay ready like at all times. No matter if she was playing or not, like you just have to stay ready for when your name is called to go on the court.
Yeah, you got to see, I guess, some of the rivalry last year between TCU and Baylor, but it's kind of been a lopsided rivalry. It says 36 straight wins for Baylor. This might be like the most contentious of the matchups. How does that kind of change it with how good TCU is this year, and how are you preparing for that matchup?
It doesn't really change anything. It's just another game. Just knowing our personnel, just being ready, being prepared for what, their punches and stuff like that. So.
Y'all faced some very tall players. Sedona, obviously, same kind of size. How much does that prepare what you've already faced? How much does that prepare you to face a player like Sedona?
I mean, just prepared us a lot. So I mean, after going against Betts, we already know like what 6'7" is and what we can and cannot do against that kind of height. So I think we're prepared.
Thank you.
Madison. Obviously, she won't be on the court, but what does she mean to this team off the court, and what do you expect her to kind of contribute to this team for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think first of all, you know, it's obviously we're always going to prioritize a person's health long term rather than short term. And I don't even know if she tried to get back this time, if it's even feasible. But ultimately, it's about Madison being able to be a teacher and a mom and move and function and not tweak her back and not be able to walk for days. So I think it was the best decision for her long-term health. You know, we've dealt with Madison's injuries in the past, and one of the things that happened this year was I was so afraid of this moment, you know, when we finally, that, you know, I hesitated to play her more in November for fear of this. And this is just how the world works. Right when I just said, I need to play her, she's making us better, this happened, you know? You know, and I think like Derek and I did the radio interview before Utah, and he said, who's going to have to step up for you in this game? And I'm like, it's Madison. This is Madison's game. And sure enough, it was that shoot around 20 minutes later that she tweaked it. So just disappointed for her. Certainly had an amazing career at Belmont and really never got her feet wet here because of dealing with injuries. But Madison's an elite human. She's an elite representative of Baylor. She's a servant leader. She cares about young people. Her faith is super, super strong. And so, you know, I think she's going to, for a bit, be dealing with the nature of the injury and dealing with it. But I certainly think she'll be emotional support for our team going forward. She's just not at the point where she's going to travel and do things like that. We gotta prioritize her health. So I don't know how much right now she's going to be around. I think it's right now about Madison taking care of Madison.
And then on the court, to get the minutes that you did against UCLA from Kayla, in that spot, how important is that for her, and how big is she ready to kind of step up into that role?
Oh, I hope. I mean, I think when Kayla got thrown in the fire at Oregon, she wasn't ready. She wasn't ready mentally. She wasn't ready physically. She had good practices. She had made shots in practice. Like, it wasn't that she doesn't have the talent or the skill. But it was big lights and the eyes got real big. And I think that, she's been stacking good practices. So it wasn't like this great surprise that she played well against, Utah. I think she's been putting together a string of good practices, and I think that's usually overlooked. I don't think people know that the reality is you only play well in games when you prepare well. And so you don't just show up there. There are gamers, but being a gamer, there probably was a lot put into being someone that was confident when the lights flipped on. And so I think she's growing. I think she's getting better. I think, you know, like, I wasn't afraid to run a play for her right when she checked into the game against UCLA. I think she gives us a little bit what we had in Dre. It's different, but someone who can pick and pop and really be a stretch five. I think physically that's who she has to guard, our fives, and that's obviously a great challenge. But she's not really ready to guard fours that are going to be on the perimeter and drive and handle the ball a lot. But I think she gives us something different, you know, and gives us a little more size, but someone that we can play a little bit more like Dre, that, you know, she can drag into a three, she can pick and pop, we can screen her to actions. And so there's no doubt she's a talented kid, and we're going to need her because I was starting to play Madison because Madison will do those things.
And Nicki, it seems like y'all face size a lot this year, just game after game after game. Does that prepare you? And you said Sedona plays a lot different than Betts, but does that prepare you that you have seen that kind of size so much?
Yeah, I think different on the offensive side. I think Sedona plays on the perimeter a lot. I mean, she's not afraid to go in post, and her post game is good. But she's very much a facilitating big on the perimeter for them. And so that's why I would say, Lauren Betts wasn't picking and popping and, against us. Like, her damage was all 5 feet and in. Sedona has the ability to beat you on the perimeter as well. But I think when it comes to playing against bigs, I think it's just as important that you can move them and accomplish what you need to accomplish on the offensive side. So I think that's where I feel like, having played Lauren and now playing TCU, it gives us like a gauge of, we can't take that shot. I mean, we are not going to win that matchup 100 times out of 100 times. And understanding the shots that we can take. We got a lot of offensive rebounds against UCLA, and we needed to dribble them out and give ourselves an extra possession rather than trying to go back up and score. It's hard to manipulate her 2 feet from the basket. You have to do more work early to get her off balance if you're going to score 2 feet from the basket. So I think we have to understand on drives. We got to stay on our dribble longer. We've got to move on the perimeter on dribble penetration. But we tried to challenge Sedona last year pretty ineffectively as well. And we got better as the game went along at drawing and dropping, drawing and kicking instead of just drawing and trying to play through her. Like, we're not going to win that, and I do think her and Nettie can have a really good individual matchup. I hope the officials let them, because I don't believe Nettie had a chance in that game. I thought 3 of those calls were incredibly questionable. When it comes to elite centers playing, you make a swim move and it's an offensive foul. I think that, she's got to stay out of foul trouble. But I also think she's got to be given a chance. And I don't say that very often, but I don't think she was given a chance.
We were trying to figure it out. When's the last time that y'all played back-to-back top 10 teams? And I think we went all the way back to a tournament, 5 years ago that happened. How do games like this in a row prepare you for tournament season, hopefully?
I think it's about scouting report prep. It's about understanding your strengths. The teams that win in March are the teams that know who they are and do what they do better than the team they're playing. And so I think when you match up with really, really good teams, you have to do a better job of executing than they do. And you have to do a better job executing on both sides of the ball. And maybe you don't for 40 minutes, but you have to do it enough to get an upper hand. And so, I think a neutral site game, a road game, we had to win a road game last year in March to go to the Sweet 16. So, you just have, I'm not a big cliche. You got to want it more because I think both teams are going to want it equally. So I really think it comes down to being prepared and making the right plays and the plays that work for you. And when we were trying to do too much in the first half, it was all coming from a really good place, trying to play fast, trying to get to the rim before Lauren got down the floor. But we were taking our last dribble at the three-point line and launching our bodies and the ball at the basket. And we just had no chance to make those shots. I thought in the second half, we did a really good job. We just had some kids miss shots that they would normally make. But I thought our execution was considerably better. We can't wait till the second half to know what will work and what we need to do to execute. So I think that's what it means when it comes to March. It's about playing good teams, knowing what their strengths are, taking away their strengths. If Madison Connor makes 7 threes, we're not going to win. We have to understand who we're defending and to the best of our ability, take their strengths away from them.
Maybe just thinking about this TCU team in general, that losing that 1-point game in Stillwater, now coming to play you guys, I don't think that's probably a good thing for you guys, but does this rivalry seem different this year, or at least the way maybe they're attacking it, or the way you guys are approaching it?
Yeah, I'm not sure because, last year we played them full strength when they were ranked and undefeated. And so did they end up getting to be that TCU for the rest of the season? No, but they were a pretty confident group that came in to play the first ever game here in Foster. So, they are a team full of veteran players. I mean, 7th year senior, 5th year senior, 5th year senior, senior, like they really only play a couple non-seniors, and not a ton. And so because of that, I think they're a really confident group. Sedona Prince is really confident. Haley Van Lith is really confident. You don't score as many points as she's scored and think you can't score in any gym you walk into. So winning, losing to Oklahoma State, does that add a little more fuel? Sure. Does losing to UCLA give us a little more fuel? I think it was going to be a key matchup regardless. Does losing get your attention, when they haven't lost a whole lot this year? Absolutely. But I don't think they were going to be, a year ago, we walked into that game and we had video footage of them talking about how they couldn't wait to beat Baylor, and so I don't think that changes. Like, I don't think that changes one year to the next. And Sedona's a Texas kid. Like, this rivalry means something regardless of their history. To them, the only history that matters is the one that they're a part of, because that team, very few of them started at TCU, and most of them are there because of Mark Campbell. And so it's their story they're writing rather than some historical matchup of two Texas teams. It's, they did an amazing job building out of the portal, and they have really, really good players that are really good at basketball.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the Don't Poke the Bear game?
Was one of them. Yes, that was the Don't Poke the Bear.
See if I got my voice back or not. What do you see from them? We've talked about Sedona, you've talked about Haley some. What do you see from them? What makes them go, I guess?
Yeah, I think they're not. There's not a lot of teams in the country that have a center with Sedona's size, with the ability to pass and play through. You see people play through centers on the low block, but to play through her on the perimeter, they can do a lot of things because of that. But I think a lot of, you're going to guard a lot of pick and rolls. They're going to pick and roll. They're going to pitch it. They're going to twist it. They're going to, Haley's really good at getting you into the screen and then playing, and I think they do a good job of spacing with their roster. Everything they do is predicated on spacing. Our systems are very similar in a lot of ways. We get to certain things differently, but, there's going to be a lot of slot and middle ball screens with Haley and Sedona, and a lot of pitches with Madison Connor. So we got to be able to guard ball screens. We got to be able to guard pitches. We got to guard DHOs. We got to guard zoom. They're going to get in a lot of movement where they're moving those three around, and then you can't forget about Big B, because when Oklahoma State used Big B's defender to help on the roll the first quarter of the game, Big B hit 3 threes, and that kind of got TCU off to a really good start. Emma Nopu's an elite offensive rebounder, elite defensive versatility. She's their Bella. She guards fours, she guards threes, she'll guard a point guard. They're going to put her on whoever they need to stop at a particular point in the game, and she does that really, really well. So, I think they're just really good offensively. I think they've had a ton of growth, though. I can tell you, I think their defense is significantly better this year than last year. They ended up playing us 40 minutes of zone a year ago. They've played very little zone this year. Doesn't mean we won't see it. But I think their scouting report defense, their mixture of ball screen coverages, I think they're getting after it. I don't think they're a team that needs to score 100 to win, and so I think they've done a really good job with Big B. They added more size versatility on the perimeter defensively. And so that allows them to move Emanopu around a little bit. And Haley fights. She fights through screens. She does a good job being aggressive on the ball. And then you got rim protection. So, the only thing they don't do is go very deep, in their bigger games. They're going to play 7 players. So, can we make Sedona work if she's going to play 40 minutes like she did against Oklahoma State?
I think it was after the Utah game you said that you told Bella, it's like, you can't foul here. Can you do that with Nettie? Like, is it difficult to manage that foul discipline with kind of the aggressiveness that obviously makes y'all pretty good when she's kind of playing her game, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I've told Nettie that. I don't know that it's worked yet. I think there haven't been a lot of games where I felt the way I did against UCLA, where I thought you're in foul trouble, not of your own volition. Now, I told her on the first foul of the game that she looked like she was going crowd surfing. And she can't have those. Like, it's 1-on-2 in transition. And if Kiki scores that, Kiki scores that. Like, we don't need you jumping on her. And I think that one makes the second one that was really insignificant, really significant. Like, you have to understand your value. And it's not like I don't think she wants to do what we want her to do. But I think it was the Utah game when she picked up her third on the first possession of the third. And at one point, Sophia walked over to me and she said, Nettie said she can play with 3. And I turned around and I said, I don't. So I would rather her come into, and believe me, I'm a big believer that coaches foul their players out sometimes without the player fouling out. I've used that terminology before. In fact, I had a fan ask me last night, Jana had mentioned on the radio that we were blocking our own shots, and he didn't know what that meant. So I'm like, that's a Nicki Collen term. So, I do think coaches foul their own players out. Sometimes you sit them with fear that on their second, that they'll pick up their third, and then they play the whole second half and they never have more than 2, And so I think there are you have to weigh risk sometimes, but I think you don't usually risk it if you stay close. Like if another team goes on a run, you just go, okay, like, what am I saving this player for if I don't play him now? But if the game stays close, I want to play the analytics on having them out there when the game is on the line. The same way, like, just so everybody knows, blocking your own shot is like when there's a rim protector and you take a crazy shot, rather than going in there and shooting your normal shot. Like, you've literally blocked your own shot in fear. And like, you have no chance to make that. We also have no chance that if they block it out of bounds to get the ball back, because you've just thrown that thing up at the backboard. So, but anyway, that's what that terminology meant. I think a lot of times players will double pump, take, absurd shots in fear of a shot blocker when they'd be better off just getting their shot blocked, because we have a chance to get that back, which rarely are we going to get the wild shots back.
Regardless of the outcome, what did you make about being a part of the inaugural Coretta Scott King Classic? And I believe y'all went into the city a little bit too. What did you take away from all of that?
Yeah, it was. We had a lot of players who hadn't really spent any time in New York City. I've always said I don't think I could live there, but I absolutely love visiting. I love the energy of the city. But I think in a short period of time, getting them to experience Times Square, Carmine's, Hamilton, just that whole environment. I love the energy that I saw from them watching it. Hamilton's really long. But, like watching Bugs sing along the entire show, like they just were really, really into it. So it was a really cool experience, because I think those are things that we can do for young people that oftentimes, especially when you're young, you're maybe not going to spend your money on. So it's a way to no different than taking them to Greece and opening up the world. You know, it's kind of that idea of there's things out there besides sport. Even though when you're in it, you feel like this is the only thing, and we don't understand people that don't go to sporting events. Like, how could you live in New York City and not go to Madison Square Garden? But there's actually a lot of people that don't. And so it was a great experience. I think that platform, really thankful to Play Fly, the Coretta Scott King Classic for including us. You know, I've said this on multiple platforms. Coach Mulkey built a really big brand here for women's basketball. And one of the things I've been most proud of is we've kept the brand strong. When people view Baylor women's basketball, it's not a side note. Have we won a national championship yet? No. Is that our goal? Yes. But ultimately, it's about being able to be invited to those events, shows that there's a relevance to what we're doing. And so proud of the way we competed. You know, I mean, our game was a little closer than the second game. But also, you just look around the country. Oklahoma got beat by 40 by South Carolina. You know, and so there's a lot of really good teams in this country, and you can have an off night. Doesn't mean Oklahoma's not a great team. But, you know, I thought our performance could have been better. But I thought, under the circumstances, I thought we really bothered them in a lot of areas. And I think if we have our normal finishes, like, that thing comes down to the last 5 minutes, you know, if we're making our layups, making our free throws early. Not, you know, I mean, it was pretty even after that first 17-2 or whatever run. I mean, the crazy part about that run to begin the game was, like, I was never fazed because the night before I had watched every single basket that everyone had scored on UCLA through 17 games. Every basket. Thinking, where's the chink in the armor? Like, where am I going to find holes and ways for us to score? And the majority of their games looked like that, you know, like 14-2, 24-5, like, you know, and sometimes teams, that's why they're number one. That's why they've played one game this season that wasn't a double-figure win. Like, they have been dominant on both sides of the basketball. Their analytics, offensively and defensively, are incredible. And I hope we get another shot at them in the NCAA tournament. Thank you. Thank you.